Shvetaketu is returning home after 12 years of intense study. He walks through the forest carrying manuscripts, entirely confident that he has mastered the workings of the universe. We see his education in traditional texts like this Sanskrit section, 6.14.1. His training required absolute linguistic precision, built on the rote memorization of strict taxonomies. Possessing this incredible volume of data gave him a towering sense of intellectual superiority. But accumulating labels for the physical universe is not the same thing as understanding its underlying reality. His father, Uddalaka, greets him. He looks at his son and immediately recognizes the rigidity of his academic pride. Rather than congratulating him, Uddalaka asks a single question. Did you ask for that instruction by which the unthought becomes thought, and the unknown becomes known? This question marks a sharp pivot in the Upanishadic tradition. It turns the focus away from cataloging the external environment and points it directly toward finding the singular, invisible foundation beneath all existence. True inquiry begins the moment the intellect reaches its limit, and we are forced to admit our profound ignorance. Uddalaka begins dismantling his son's worldview using ordinary physical materials. He wants to strip away what the texts call names and forms. Take a lump of clay. We look at the spinning object on the wheel and call it a pot or a jar. Those are temporary labels. The reality of the object is simply clay. The same rule applies to gold. Artisans shape the raw metal into bracelets, rings, or coins. The names and the shapes change based on their use, but the base substance remains gold. Centuries later, the philosopher Adi Shankaracharya formalized this observation. He argued that the complex, plural world we navigate daily is a superimposition, a layer of labels placed over a strictly non-dual reality, which he called Sat. The physical boundaries we observe are temporary illusions. Only the underlying substance is permanent. This principle scales up to the cosmic level. A wide river flows steadily through a landscape. It has a specific origin, a defined route, and a distinct name. But the moment those waters empty into the ocean, the boundaries dissolve. The rivers lose their names and become a single, indistinguishable body of water. Uddalaka then scales the concept down to the microscopic level. He instructs his son to split open a tiny banyan seed. As we read in section 12 of the text, the father asks what is inside. The son replies, "Nothing, sir." The father corrects his son's observation. Out of that invisible, seemingly empty space, the massive architecture of the banyan tree grows. A foundational essence does not need to be visible or quantifiable to be the ultimate reality of a physical structure. To prove this invisible essence is omnipresent, Uddalaka sets up a final empirical test. He places a chunk of rock salt into a container of water. Overnight, it dissolves into the water. The next morning, Shvetaketu looks into the vessel. He cannot see the salt, and he cannot touch it. Look at the text of section 13. Uddalaka asks his son to take a sip from the top, the middle, and the bottom of the water. In every instance, the son confirms the taste, salty. The essence is entirely invisible, yet it permeates the entire volume equally. Here, the father delivers the central axiom of the Upanishad. That is the truth. That is the self. And that's how you are, Shvetaketu. The ultimate reality of the universe is an indivisible essence, distributed evenly through every drop of existence. The clay, the seeds, and the salt are only pedagogical tools. The true target of this inquiry is human identity. The logic requires a final leap. If the entire physical universe emerges from a single invisible essence, then the human observer is constructed from that exact same essence. This is easily misunderstood. This is not a claim that the human ego, or the individual personality, possesses the traits of a god. Realizing the phrase Tat Tvam Asi, thou art that, requires the total dissolution of the separate ego. The thou refers to the Atman, the universal awareness. It does not refer to the localized body or the mind. Shvetaketu sits quietly. The proud academic who arrived home carrying manuscripts has been replaced by a humbled observer of reality. Yet a practical tension remains. If our true nature is the universal whole, why do we wake up every day experiencing the friction and isolation of a separate life? The ancient sages do not ask us to somehow become Brahman. They ask us to recognize that we have never been separate. Wisdom is the removal of the illusion of separation. How we navigate our daily lives within that reality is what we will explore in the season finale.